So this poem is called Rock and Roll, and I'm going to give you a few sort of things going into it. X, if you don't know, led by John Doe and Exene Cervenka, the greatest rock and roll band of the 70s. I mean, late 70s, early 80s, maybe, at least in LA. Milton is a poet who was blind. He wrote a poem called Paradise Lost, which has something to do with this poem. Willy Loman, you know him, right? Things didn't turn out so well. Dante, this is a midlife crisis poem, and he had a midlife crisis that ended up being a poem. You know, Freud, died. You know how Freud died. He had jaw cancer, and most of the last part of his face was not there at the end. And you know what happened to Kurt Cobain, right? I think that, right? So this is called Rock and Roll. Wildly in love in 1982 Los Angeles. John Doe and Exene Cervenka bend to a microphone and howl, "I'm lost," headed down the highway. In 1979, all over the world, Bon Scott of AC/DC shouts his anthemic "Highway to Hell," in reference, of course, to Milton's Satan in Paradise Lost, Book 2, as Satan stands lost, staring into the abyss of chaos and old night, with whom he bargains, etc., etc. Henceforth and beforeforth, really, all lost highways lead to hell, and everyone rides them, at least for a while. Willy Loman says, to be 30 and lost in America, the greatest country in the world, is a disgrace. Of course, it's grace itself that may be the problem, as Willy learns soon enough. If Dante were approaching midlife today, lost in some dark wood, one wonders if he'd simply buy a car and, headed down the highway, blast classic rock. Many of the lost buy Porsches if they can, the fired-up descendant of Hitler's vision of the people's car, the Volkswagen Beetle, engineered by Ferdinand Porsche himself based on Hitler's sketch, the quintessential car of the summer of love, driven by Dean Stockwell or Dean Jones or John Dean, who cares, close friend of Neil Young in The Love Bug. Dean, a beautiful American by all accounts, was a junkie, and very lost. In 1994, Kurt Cobain of Nirvana could rock with the best of them and was a terrible disgrace. A guitar is like a gun, is like a cock, is like a mic. Simple stuff, says Dr. Freud, whose mouth in the end looked like Kurt's after he, very lost, stuffed a mic down his throat, growled a few remarkably expressive growls, and pulled the trigger. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.